So, my name is Tyrell.
Hi Tyrell,
I'm
nice to meet you.
From Lambeth Academy, and I'm doing my BBC school news report with my colleague Gbola, who is our cameraman. We'd just like to ask you a few questions about the rise in gun and knife crime in Lambeth and around the UK. Could you just shed some light on that, and why do you believe this is happening?
Well, in and around 2007-8, which was a while ago now, we had a surge in youth-on-youth serious violence, and it came to national prominence with the shooting just down the road from where we're sitting at Streatham Ice Rink in broad daylight of a young man called Andre Smart Ford, who was 16, 17. And there were a number of other incidents and murders around that time, which led in 2008 to 29 teenagers losing their lives in London, just in London. Extraordinary, yeah. The figures, the numbers of fatalities abated, but the problem never went away. And what we are now seeing is an increase again, a surge in violence again. So in 2014, 11 teenagers lost their lives in London to this serious youth violence. In 2015, that went up to 17. And in the last 3 years, we've seen a 13.4% increase in serious youth violence. And we have seen an increase of over 25% of the offences that the Metropolitan Police tags as being gang-related.
Yeah.
And so that is the picture of what is happening on our streets today, and that is why recently I just led a debate in the House of Commons on that issue.
Wow. Thank you for that insightful comment. Do you think youth unemployment is a key factor in the rise of gun and knife crime?
I think, well, let's be clear, when we're talking about gun and knife crime, there's a broad range of age groups that are involved in gun and knife crime. And so what I would say in respect of the serious youth element to this is I do think that unemployment has a part to play. And, the unemployment rate amongst young people is double the main rate, which is around 5 to 6%, whereas the youth rate is more than 10%. And if you look amongst, for example, young black males, it's 35%. And so that has got to play a part, but I think there are a whole suite of reasons why what is happening, and that's one of several.
Thank you. Has the Conservative government taken this matter seriously?
To be honest, I don't really see this as a party political thing.
Yeah.
And the easiest thing for me to do as a Labour politician would be to criticise the Tories, but I'm not really interested in playing that game because I think this is too serious. I think they've done some good things, and I think the last Labour government did some good things as well. But in aggregate, collectively, we all need to do more.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I don't like that the government is doing is ending youth violence and exploitation gang peer review network, which is a long-winded title for a collection of academics, youth workers, experts in the field, who they sent around the country to spread best practice on how we prevent this from happening, and they're disbanding that in April. I think that's a retrograde step.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing that they're doing, but they're reversing, which I think is bad. But I think there does need to be more focus on it, no doubt, and more will to solve the problem. But it's not. I think it's quite easy to blame the politicians. I think we have a societal problem here. When I had my debate in the House of Commons just yesterday, trying to get media interest in this matter was difficult, and I think that's partly because this is seen as something primarily affecting young people from the deprived communities, from our estates. Yeah. And it's a bit like, oh, well, that's what they do there. That's how they roll. Whereas if this was a phenomenon impacting on middle-class families from well-to-do areas, from well-to-do schools, then you can guarantee that this would be front-page news every single day of the week.
Thank you for that. How would you say, what measurements recently have been put in place to combat the rising numbers of gun and knife crime in youth?
Well, look, there's a number of things. I think the general consensus is that a top-down approach, where people in Westminster dictate how to solve this problem in different communities, which are often very different in and of themselves, is not the solution. So you need locally driven solutions.
Yeah.
And you're seeing more and more of that, and that's a good thing. So that is definitely important. I think secondly, we definitely need more things for our young people to do. That is definitely a place where the government has an impact and is lacking, and it has an impact because often non-government organisations in local areas rely on your local council, Lambeth Council, for us to give the money and to help fund what they do. But of course all the local authorities have had their funding cut massively by about 56%.
Which is why most of the youth centres are closing.
There you go. And whereas there are certain things like your school
Yeah.
that is statutory and they provide a provision required by law, youth provision, youth activities outside of school often are not stuff that you have to do and pay to do by law. So they get left on the back burner, and if there are cuts, they are often first in line for the cuts. So I think that is definitely an issue. And I think the third thing is that, you know, if you're making it more difficult and more expensive for people to go to university, you're cutting the support that you provide for them to go to college after they've left school, then it stands to reason that you're putting barriers in the way of them getting the skills they need to get a job. And like you were hinting at, if you're unemployed, then the risk of getting involved in this kind of thing. So
there's no way of making any money.
There you go.
That's actually a good question. That's actually a good answer. So. Are there any lessons we can take from any other countries, like on how they tackle their gun and knife crime?
Well, I think, look, there's a bit of learning that we can draw from the US.
Yeah.
But, you know, Clapham Common is not South Central LA, right?
Yeah.
And there are some techniques that they've used, like, you know, I think that they've got a long history of making sure you get ex-gangsters into the schools. But I think this word gang, you've got to be very careful using it. It is an Americanism in some respects, and I'm not sure how helpful it is, because I think if you label a young person as a gangster, you kind of reinforce the notion that they are a gangster when really they may not be in any proper understanding of the word. And actually, instead of using the word, we need to work out how we prevent them from ever being given that label in the first place. So I think there is some learning, but I think we've got to be careful, and we have to have something that is appropriate for the UK.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have. So thank you for your time.
Pleasure. Best of luck.
Thanks for your time. I know you're a very busy person, and